Welcome to the Limitless Ladies in Leadership podcast. I'm your host, Danielle, and I've created a space for the many powerful, creative, and limitless female leaders to share their stories. From female CEOs to professional athletes and doctors, every powerful woman has a story to tell. There's no guarantee where this podcast will take us, so welcome to the unfiltered, unedited, and badass space for all women to align. If you're enjoying the podcast, don't forget to show some love on Patreon at Limitless Ladies in Leadership. But for now, welcome to the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another podcast. I am your host, Danielle, and on the phone with me today is Jenny Goldfarb. Securing a large capital investment from Mark Cuban on Shark Tank, Jenny brings 100 years of family deli history to her authentic plant-based deli slices. Ms. Goldfarb is a working mother of three, runs 2 manufacturing plants, and has a goal of worldwide distribution to prove that the finest deli requires no compromise. Currently, Jenny's Unreal Deli slices are available in over 1,000 retail stores and restaurants, including Whole Foods, as well as Veggie Grill, Mendocino Farms, and Quiznos. Unreal Deli has also been featured in New York Times as well as New York Magazine. Jenny, I cannot wait to dive into your story today. Thank you so much for being here.
Awesome. Thank you for that beautiful introduction, Danielle. I'm so jazzed to be here and be a part of this today. Thank you.
Yeah. So before we get started with the interview, I love to ask my guests what their definition of the word limitless is. So what does that word mean for you?
I mean, when I think about limitless, I feel as though I'm really thinking to the moon. I actually was recently talking with a chef who was literally working on bringing food for 3 years to NASA. So I honestly feel like if you can picture it in your mind, you can make it happen. And so I have some beautiful imaginations. And so limitless is just, a question of how big you can dream. And if you can dream it, you can put the pieces in place to actually make it happen. So that's my limitless.
I love it. Gosh, I have so many questions for you. I don't even know where to get started, but let's just start with pre-Unreal Deli. We mentioned your family's history of delis. Your great-grandfather worked his way up from washing dishes to owning and operating several New York delis and cafeterias. Do you know when his first deli was established?
So I don't know that much because I actually never met him. He was my great-grandfather who passed right before I was born, but I've heard only the most marvelous stories. And the story really begins when he was 19 years old, and he came from Romania to the Lower East Side of New York with 2 of his brothers. So he was still a teenager and didn't have his parents with him, and he didn't speak English. We like to think we're doing amazing things in this generation, but the seeds that were planted for us to be limitless is really so extraordinary. So he came with that kind of background, not really having many skills, and started washing dishes. And like the classic American dream, he came to ultimately own and operate several New York City delis and cafeterias, mostly starting in the 30s, I want to say, 1930s, and concluding in the 50s and 60s. So that was Morris Gross, my great grandpa, who I instilled, not only kindness and fairness in business, but also a real love of real deli, pastrami and corned beef and all that classic New York deli meat.
Yeah. So fast forwarding to your story, what was your profession before you got started with Unreal Deli?
So I got an undergraduate business degree, which even business school business degrees are you learn how to hand over your business card, basically. So I don't count that as any real serious background of anything. So I had that under my belt, if that means anything at all. And then I wound up, believe it or not, working in the pharmaceutical industry for a year because it was an easy job that was paying well. And that, interestingly, allowed me to see firsthand how the medical establishment in this country is really Band-Aid medicine. No one wants to talk about what are you eating, what's your lifestyle, how are you exercising. They just want to say, take this, the needle's really tiny, you'll get what you need from this, external medication. And so that was a little bit of a light bulb moment for me to kind of just see how that all operated. And then after that, I actually got involved in a couple of different tech companies. I was doing some user experience work in my later 20s. I kind of always knew how to hustle a little bit. I was doing Airbnb. Before Airbnb, I had a little apartment in New York that I rented out for triple the rent I was paying. So I always kind of knew how to make a dime. And then when I was a young married woman here in Los Angeles, I didn't really have the opportunity to like go out and get actual work outside the home. And so I had a fine jewelry business where I was buying like David Yurman and Cartier jewelry and then reselling it for a nice profit just to pay for my kids' preschool, just to be scrappy and have something to do. So I was kind of mostly coming into this whole new real experience at Unreal Deli with just scrappiness, I would say.
Oh, that's awesome. And I love that you shared all these different professions, because I think sometimes we can get in our heads and say, oh, I need to figure out my career by the time I'm 25, or, and it's like we change so many times.
Totally. And to give yourself that opportunity to explore one thing and then the other. And then I like to say, as far as really figuring out like your real passion and your real best go at creating something big, is to first address like what's a little broken in the world, what's a little bit hurting in the world. So I had that one clue with pharmaceutical, but then it really started after I was doing all the jewelry stuff. I started seeing some videos of what happens on these everyday farms, the factory farms, and even like the grass-fed, local, happy, quote unquote farms. And it just broke my heart to smithereens. And I wasn't thinking I was going to be enterprising on that or any business was coming on it. But it hit me so deeply that I later looked in retrospect and said, that's how you start a good business. You ask it, what's really broken? What hurts your heart? And so I went to my very meat and potatoes husband and said, I want to go vegan. And he was like, what are you talking about? You're not that good of a regular cook. You want to become a vegan cook? And I was like, I don't know, but I can't keep eating what I'm seeing here. I can't keep funding this. And so I painstakingly learned how to cook from the produce and grain sections of the grocery store, which took years. And finally, the food got good and then better. And one day, excellent in some cases. Some entrees I'd serve, my husband would be like, I can't even believe there isn't meat and dairy in this. And so I wound up making a little food blog, which was, again, like just, you don't know what's going to come and you're just going like moving the next piece along, right? That wasn't my ultimate business. But I said to myself, I want to show people, moms, busy folks, how doable and delicious vegan can be, especially if you have kids and you only have 15 minutes to make a meal and all this. So I made a food blog called Count Your Colors, and I thought that was going to be my thing. I actually received a grant, and I thought maybe one day I'll get some advertising dollars, and like, this is what I do. But then again, I wound up making this corned beef. And why did I make this? Because I wanted it for my own palate. I missed good quality New York style deli meat, and I kind of knew how to make faux meats, and I knew about the kind of spices and brines that would be required to pull together like a New York style corned beef pastrami. And I made it. And I remember actually, I took some of it early out of the oven. And I took a bite and I texted my husband and my father. And I said, this is the most delicious thing I've ever eaten in my life. And they came home and felt similarly. Well, my father doesn't live near here, but my husband tasted it. And then my in-laws tried it. And even friends and family who thought I was a little bit of a crazy hippie for taking my family on this vegan crusade were like, this is so amazing. You should make a business out of this. And I turned them down for a month or two. And then finally they got in my head and I emailed a couple people. And I found out about a tiny commercial kitchen that I could rent for $25 an hour and cook it myself. And see if maybe I could sell this thing.
Wow.
So that's, yeah.
What an amazing story. So I'm hearing like so much positive in your story, but were there some roadblocks that you ran into when you were creating this?
It was all roadblocks. They were only roadblocks. Well, yeah. I mean, first off, just going into like the videos, I mean, that was like such hard work for very, very little return. So I would call that a bit of a roadblock. I think I'd spend about 10 hours a week editing these videos to make them like snappy and musical and fun. And the kids would be involved. And it was cute, but it was a lot of work for very little return. And one might have just stopped there and said, look, I'm not getting any return on this. So why even keep going? But of course it led to this, and thank God. But anyway, yeah, there were a lot of roadblocks. And then I'll just say one more, like when I moved into that tiny commercial kitchen, that's not even like a big kitchen that you need to do big customers, but the little one, when I left my home kitchen to the commercial one, they had a convection oven and I only had a conventional oven, which the convection like blows air all around. I was banging my head against the wall, I want to say for 3 months, just to get the recipe right from my kitchen to the. So that's another massive roadblock. Yeah. Anyone could have stopped right there, thrown the towel in. But I kept going. I figured it out. It was step by step. So yeah, definite roadblocks. And still to this day, obviously, right?
Yeah, right. Was there ever a point where you were like, I think I'm going to quit doing this? Or were you just like, okay, this is another challenge and I get to overcome it?
Yeah. So there was a day, it's funny, we actually just posted about this on social because I'm trying to get a little personal also on our Unreal Deli social media. And so when I started this whole business, on top of like that I had 2 kids and that I had no experience in this, I was also pregnant. I was very newly pregnant. This was my 3rd baby in my belly. So there was one day I dropped my kids at preschool. I get all my ingredients from like my local Ralph store because I wasn't buying at a commercial level yet. I bring my Vitamix and all these ingredients out to the kitchen, like 40-minute drive. I'm getting out of the car and I'm like a New Yorker. So I like move fast. I want to get all my things in one trip. And, you know, I had all my things in my hand and I tripped and I fell to the point that I like scraped my face and was bleeding. And some stranger had to help me pick up my things. And I remember at that moment being like, I must be taking on too much. Like the universe must be sending me a message like, Jenny, you've just gone a little too much on this one. And maybe I should now throw in the towel. And I walked inside the kitchen and I looked at my face and I wiped the blood and I said, too bad. I'm going at it. I don't care if, and that, thank God that was the worst of those moments. And from then on, it's been much more smooth than that. But that was a little bit rock bottom and I easily could have thrown in the towel then. But thankfully, I stayed the course.
Yeah, thank God, because you're doing amazing now. And you mentioned you're also a mom. How the heck did you juggle raising kids, running this business, dealing with all this stress? Like, this is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I really actually feel like COVID has now allowed for like a new level of the woman to have domain, to like be home, to kick ass out in the world from her, yoga pants and computer, laptop, phone, whatever. Just like as one example, and this is certainly skipping way ahead in the story, but just to show how this is like, I feel like the era of the woman now is I'm able to sit here and close deals with massive supermarkets, like hundreds and thousands of stores, to the point that 1 year ago or a year and a month ago, if you wanted to even work with a 20 chain grocery place, that would have been a flight to the other part of the country, 2 nights in a hotel, blah, blah, blah. I feel like this new setup like completely caters to like the stay-at-home mom that can still kill it in the world. So I feel like a lot of thanks to that. I also have to thank, I have a wonderful woman who we've known for a ton of years who helps with my baby. The big kids are now home on virtual school because we're in California. And look, it's not always, the easiest. Sometimes I'm working late. Sometimes I'm at the dinner table glancing at my phone, having to send a thing back. But, my husband also realizes the massive opportunity and he stepped up a bit in the fathering aspect. And my kids get it, that there's a big picture. They're not always thrilled about it, but they get it. And I also lately especially have been doing my best to like give them very like close up time, meaning to say like if they need me for a thing, I'm like deep in right in front of their grill to the point that like I'm so close with them that like if that's 3 minutes of that, they're good for 3 hours because they've had like mommy time like this, you know what I mean? And it's like, okay, enough now, so trying to do that too. But also one last thing is we celebrate Shabbat because we're Jewish, the whole Mrs. Goldfarb thing. And I'm not like super orthodox about it, but what I try and do is at least power off the phone and have no work happen for 25 hours starting Friday evening to Saturday at sundown. And so they know that for one whole day, I don't sit in this chair that I'm in right now. They have full access to me 100% of the time. So that adds a nice little ebb and flow to the week and all that.
That's cool. And that also gives you a little mental break too, because this has got to be exhausting.
It does. Thank you. Yes.
And we already kind of touched on this a little bit, but I wouldn't mind if you went a little deeper in the topic. But due to your family's history, it seems kind of obvious why you would go the deli route to me. But the plant-based alternative, so you mentioned that you went vegan. So what was your motive in that? Was it like slaughterhouse footage? Was it just learning about plant-based lifestyles? Like what kind of got you into that?
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing some of the footage and then being like, how could this be? And like then seeing more of it and seeing some documentaries and being like, who greenlit this? Who ever said this was okay? I don't ever remember being asked if this or anyone giving the green light on this.
Yeah.
So after I like felt like, like really crushed by it and really questioning how it came to be, I actually came to feel like I was really, and all of us have been like taken for a ride to believe that this is normal, healthy, humane, acceptable. And, I'll hear people say, I love animals. I don't, and the truth is everybody loves animals. You don't have to have a dog to know that like animals are great. We love them, period. So it's, I just think to anyone who's like just woke to the plight of their animal friends, it's almost just like, it just isn't acceptable. And I remember for so long, I tried to say, okay, we won't eat this kind of meat, but we'll eat the grass-fed. Okay, we won't have those kind of eggs, but we'll have these kind. I tried so hard, and friends every now and then will be like, you don't even eat fish? And I'm like, I tried to eat fish. I tried to be normal, but anyway, I cut it. I couldn't add it up that it would be acceptable somehow. So, anyway, it's thankfully becoming more and more mainstream because of women like us, Danielle, you and me, rising to the moment. But basically, yeah, it came to me all through the animals, basically. And what's amazing is I'll give in my like sales pitches now when I talk to like buyers of restaurants and grocery stores, I'll say, listen, I found out from the animals. It's very compelling to like get the memo that way. But so many people are finding out from the health perspective. They're finding out from the, ecological perspective. So like, no matter where you cut it, the truth is seeping in and people are learning what's up.
Yeah, no, and it's such an awesome opportunity right now because I think a lot of people had the goal of like 2020 to like start out plant-based or incorporate more plant-based or at least learn about it. And like you said, it's not necessarily the animals that get people there. They look at the ecological side, the environmental side. They're like, dang, we're not going to have a planet for our grandkids if we continue this way.
100%.
Yeah. So as a vegan and a business owner, are there some values that you have that you're unwilling to compromise in regard to Unreal Deli? Like has something come up or have you set this sort of line? Like if this comes up.
So we're really, really big into deliciousness, and like no product is getting out unless it meets our very high level of deliciousness standards, which really means almost that it could be, passed in blind taste tests, and that like just that the deliciousness level is like high up there. I also love hiring vegan women. So there are like, I think 6-ish of us in the company and 4 of them are vegan women. So that's something I really try and hold by because I want to empower women. I want to make vegan normal. And so those are 2 things that are just, kind of like bottom lines or very important things to try and hold by.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk about the products. Which ones do you currently have?
Totally. So of course the corned beef, which is what we launched with. So this is our unsliced. I'm showing a package. Maybe you'll have it on the site or whatever. But we have our our thin sliced 5-ounce corned beef, which is sold now in many hundreds, very, very imminently, it'll be thousands of locations. We have our Unreal roasted turkey, which what's so amazing about these meats is that they're made with whole vegetables and they're made with all ingredients that not only can you pronounce the names of them, you can buy them in your local store. So nothing takes like a bioreactor or, you're not like pulling protein from a crazy thing that, requires all sorts of wild processing to come about. Every ingredient can be bought at Ralph's. And then the third product that's coming out this spring is our Unreal steak slices. We set out to make a roast beef and it actually came out so high quality, charbroiled edges and all this that in our marketing trials, people said it feels more like a steak slice than like a roast. So we're calling on Unreal steak slices and it's coming out this spring.
Wow, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
And you started to answer this before I asked you, but what are some of the ingredients that you use in your products?
Yeah. So we do use this ingredient. It isn't gluten-free because we use this ingredient called wheat gluten, which I know gluten doesn't have a great rap, but I'd love to just take 2 seconds and try and defend it. It is the protein part of the wheat grain. So you're getting a ton of protein. Each sandwich, we say about 20 grams of protein. And you're getting like no carbs basically with that. So in that sense, we like that wheat gluten the ingredient. And then in the corned beef, we have whole beets, chickpeas, and tomatoes. In the turkey, we have whole celery, whole onion, and white beans. And in the steak slices, we have lentils and mushrooms.
Wow.
As our like star, vegetables there. And then everything else is like soy sauce, spices, mustard, like stuff stuff you probably have in your house, many of the ingredients. So yeah.
So what about shelf life then? If you don't have any of these preservatives, how long do they last?
Actually, it's amazing. People ask me that all the time. It's a natural question, of course. And what I like to tell them is that, dead animals rot a lot faster than cooked vegetables do. So if it's frozen, we get 9 to 12 months, and refrigerated 6 weeks, which is way longer than any, animal-based deli meat.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing.
Totally.
Okay, I want to talk about Shark Tank because this is super exciting for me.
Let's go.
When were you featured on the show?
So it aired a year and a couple of months ago, like November 2019, and we filmed it September 2019. And I'd only been in the business like 6 months at that time. And I only came onto the show with $10,000 in revenues, which is like a drop in like a bucket. Like there are companies that show up there with millions, many hundreds of thousands, and they don't get deals. So it was like a lot of chutzpah to even walk on that stage with that.
Yeah, and then he offered you $250,000 for a 20% stake. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, my question was what prompted you to accept it, but what prompted you not to, I guess, if you didn't?
Totally. So I actually, the offer, the deal I was trying to get was $100,000 for 10%. And the way Shark Tank normally works is you get your $100,000 or whatever you're asking for, and you're giving up 30 and 40%, right? That's normally how it works. And so I said to myself, all right, I'll give up that $100,000 for as much as 30%, but that's it. So the first order I got from Mr. Wonderful was the $100,000 for 20%. So in my mind, I was like, I just won this entire show. That's what I was thinking, right? But I played it cool. And then Cuban goes, listen, I love it. I want it. I just became vegetarian. That was the first time he said that publicly. And then he goes, I'm going to give you, I also want 20%, like what Mr. Wonderful had said, but I'll give you $250,000, take it or leave it. And obviously it was a slam dunk. Wow. I got myself out of there. I honestly thought that I couldn't believe how easy it was. Yeah. And what I wound up concluding was that when you come at something with the right energy, with like what I said at the beginning there, with like wanting to fix something that's broken in the world and giving it your all and knowing that you have those goods and coming with that bravado, you can literally, like the biggest doors with the heaviest locks can come swinging right open for you.
You sell yourself without even realizing you're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. I just literally got off a phone call before our conversation, and it was a coach of mine was telling me kind of the similar thing. She's like, do something you believe in. And if it's something that you believe in, everything else will just fall into place.
Totally. Because that belief like fires you up so much, fires the people you're talking to. It's like completely contagious. Like they're not buying the thing you're selling. They're buying you. They're buying this energy. Like we all make emotional decisions all day long. So that's what when you tap into that, it's like, that's your ticket anywhere.
I love it.
Yeah.
Now, regarding the show, so I think for a lot of us, when we watch television shows, we kind of just see what's broadcasted, right? We don't see all the behind the scenes, everything that happens after. So what happens after you take the offer? Like, what now?
Yeah. Well, let me just say a couple seconds before, because it may be of interest. I did like a 30-second web application, which came followed by a casting director calling me up, which followed literally 5 50-page handwritten, questionnaire type of things. Okay. Very, very serious. And then there were several calls and video calls with producers and casting directors. And I remember each one, they were like, okay, you made it to the next round. And I was like, what? I thought we were already at the next round. Okay, fine. So they kept being like, yeah, you're at the next round. Finally, I had an air date, and they tell you that the sharks know nothing at all about you except for your first name and about your business name, nothing. So you walk into that, and then they say that the segment can go on anywhere from like 1 to 2 hours. Of course, they only show 6 minutes of that, right? So my segment was like 45 minutes, like how long I was actually out there. It wasn't that long. But then anyway, you exit the stage and they bring you back to your trailer. And my husband was there and we're screaming in the trailer and everything. And, you kind of put on a gag order. They're like, you tell anyone, it's not only not going to air, you're not going to get your deal with your sharks. So you're like a little nervous, but still pretty, very, very excited. And then each of the sharks has like one of their head of councils that's there in one of the back greenish room, one of the back rooms watching the show also. And then whatever deal is made with whatever shark, that head of council goes to the trailer, knocks on the door, introduces themselves, you exchange business cards, and then they just kind of let you know what like the due diligence process is like, because basically because the shark only knew my first name coming out, it needs to be verified. I really did make those 10,000 in sales. We really do have these accounts lined up, whatever. So that's about a 2-month process. And we passed all that with flying colors. We got our funding, and we got really, really big into food service, which is like restaurants, arenas, anywhere that you would eat food outside of your home is known as food service. And that, of course, all came crashing down with COVID. So that was just another massive roadblock that we could have completely failed as a business if we just kept our food service model. But at that point, and this is going back like a year this month, we wound up pivoting to retail, and we made our first retail packaging. And of course, that took many months and 1,000 specs and things and testing that needs to be done before you get a product onto Ralph's, as you can imagine. But I knew nothing about this food business 2 years ago, and now we have products on like these mainstream shelves. So it's please let your ladies know they can do anything if I was able to pull this off.
God, that's all I'm thinking when I'm hearing your story. I'm like, holy crap. Like there's like all these mixed emotions that come from me that's like, these ups and these downs and how exciting and how scary and like, oh my God, what's next? Like
Right. And that is how it is, like even to this day, like last week we found out about a package that was at Ralph's that somebody opened and there was mold on it. And that could have meant a massive recall and really tarnished our name and all this stuff. Turns out, thank God it was one package. I guess a little air hole got into it, whatever it was. But like I went to sleep that night, like, is this business over? We're actually now setting up recall insurance. We didn't have it. That could be like a multi-million-dollar thing. Completely put you out of it. So the stakes are high, but it's an amazing ride. So we shipped that person off who got that pack, beautiful box, so, make it up to him, and he's fine with us. And anyway, on to the next, battle, basically.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is
right.
like exciting, but crazy.
Crazy.
Wow. Okay. So you mentioned earlier that you started in a tiny kitchen,
Yep.
and now where's your kitchen now?
Yeah. So, just to mention like how I even got in with this kitchen now, because I feel like it's maybe mention worthy. There's a woman who has an ice cream business named Natasha Case, and she's her business, she's very big into like women owned. It's actually on all her packaging. And I was introduced to her through a friend of mine. And I said to her, would you be open to meeting with me? Because I'm like brand new at this and you have a real successful food business. So I drove. What happened was actually the meeting was supposed to be in January 2 years ago, but she put it off until like March. And in March already, I was like actually had some actual sales and I was doing stuff. And so I thought to myself, am I really meeting this ice cream lady? Like I'd rather meet a deli person, whatever. But I had the meeting and I said, I'm keeping it. I drove 45 minutes for a 30-minute meeting and 45 minutes back. And the whole meeting, I was kind of like, well, how did you build your business? Who were your first hires? Very generic stuff I probably could have Googled. But then at the very end of the meeting, I said to her, by the way, I could use a larger kitchen. Might you know anyone that has a facility? She goes, actually, I got the perfect person for you. And she's 15 minutes from your house. And that was my kitchen. So what I'm really trying to echo here is meet people, talk to people, get out there. It doesn't matter if they might seem irrelevant. One of their cousins might have the answer to something you need. Like, go with the flow. The universe is trying to set you up for success. So anyhow, she introduced me to a wonderful woman who I have a very close relationship with today, who has a very large bakery. What was amazing to me at first, I thought I might need a meat type of co-packer kitchen space, but actually our product is mixing dry and wet ingredients and baking them. So that's bakery items for you. So we've been working with her for a long time. And fortunately now we're almost outgrowing her. We're going to keep producing with her, but now we have a second facility also in LA. And we even have plans now to grow to a kitchen in Atlanta once we exceed capacity here, because it does look like it's probably going to be going that way.
Oh my God, how exciting.
Right? I know.
God, that's so awesome.
Thank you.
So I'm curious, like companies like Beyond Beef or, other mock meat companies, Impossible, there's a ton out there right now.
Sure.
Do you, and obviously you're operating from a different standpoint because you're coming from whole food and not processed and all these other things, but do you feel that there's competition there, or do you feel that you're able to kind of grow alongside with them?
I mean, I definitely feel grow alongside. When I was first making cold calls, when I had a big pregnant belly and not much else going, I was selling to just a few delis, cooking it myself. I'd be cold calling, grocery executives. I just always had a lot of chutzpah. I'm like, let's just call up the biggest CEO. Hey, my name is, that's part of all this. And so I remember calling a few of them, and I talked to some folks like really in the middle of the country. And fortunately, Beyond Meat paved the way that they even knew what this category even was. So I feel like I owe them a debt of gratitude. Not to mention I eat plenty of Beyond Beef, makes my family feel like a normal American family, thanks to them. But aside from that, you know, I'm really in this to shut down slaughterhouses. Like, I'm really in this to like change the game. And so I believe that plant-based food needs to feed the entire world, and we need thousands and thousands more brands out there like mine and doing other kinds of things. And so I don't look at it like competition. I got into this to save animals. And so I want to see, you know, all sorts of other companies doing this as well.
I love that. I love it. And just having that attitude of support too. Like, it never really helps to like, oh, I'm going to beat someone down to try.
Totally. And I'm always like reminding myself, like, you're going to get your lot in this world. You've already gotten more than you could have ever dreamed of. Like, why be concerned? Oh, these guys are doing this, which may be similar. Great. Let them feed people. Let this become more and more normal.
Yeah,
you know?
That's true too. With the more brands that are out there, especially when they become successful and show up in restaurants and stuff, it's more normal.
Exactly.
Yeah. So where you are now, I know the type of personality you are. You've got to have a million other goals that you want to accomplish. But do you still get in a place of fearfulness or limits or anything? Or are you kind of just like, nah, I'm good now?
No, I get listen, I got my funk. I mean, like, it's interesting. In Judaism, we learn that everyone has like a Yetzer Tov and a Yetzer Hara, which means we have like a beautifully good inclination that's like our default. And then we have an inclination that's like doubt. That's like despair. That's like not good. And that can come up in a lot of different ways. And of course, I'm a human being, and it comes up for me plenty. But I've like learned like the muscles of these and how to kind of like how I can control my outlook. You know, like what's going on in like the news feed of like my own brain. And I've actually taken that to be very carefully curating my actual news feeds on my Facebooks and Instagrams to see, you know, more nature and less gossip, for instance. And so I really take kind of like wellness and, you know, and keeping like, you know, a good headspace is like just very, very important to me. So I can kind of, when I feel like, oh, this deal isn't going to go through, or this is going bad, or there's mold on this product, I like know how to like calm myself down a little bit. Doesn't mean that I don't initially get all racy and nuts, but I can usually like poke out and see like the bigger world from the problem that's at hand. I try anyway. Yeah, I don't know that I'm going to be master of this. I'm trying.
Well, you're obviously doing something right because you're here. So,
right?
So what's next?
I'm like, just like I was in my earliest days, being scrappy, being like willing to like, you know, be bigger than I really am. So one of the things that we're doing is we're launching now a ghost kitchen. Maybe you've heard of this kind of phenomenon, but COVID really accelerated it. But it was even going on before. The concept that there can be full-on restaurants that exist in the virtual world from your third-party apps like Grubhub and DoorDash that aren't real sit-down restaurants in the world. And how do they exist? They're in like an industrial space, or they're using the kitchen of an existing restaurant. So I actually reached out to Quiznos going back a few months, and I said to them, listen, it's great that you guys took on our meat, but I promise you there's a universe out there that also cares about vegan cheese and vegan sauce and the vegan meat. And you guys have the best bread and slicers and vegetables. Let's all come together and we can launch like an actual legit Unreal Deli virtual restaurant. So we're launching 5 of those in the LA area in April. And so that's like one big thing that's just coming up, opening 5 restaurants. No big deal. I'm on a call with that later on today. And then another thing was this woman called me up. Here's like another like nice thing of like turning like an obstacle maybe into an opportunity. A woman calls me up a few weeks back and she goes, I'm really interested in possibly utilizing your meat. I work for a manufacturing company and I want to build a pre-made sandwich because there's a sandwich that's in the United Kingdom that's selling like hot fire, like they can't keep it on shelves. It's this kind of vegan corned beef sandwich on a pretzel bun and da-da-da. And she quotes me, she's going to want like 7,500 pounds a week. That would be a very good account for us. Can you ship me samples? Absolutely. So I was writing the woman back like, hey, any feeling on the samples? Did you like them? You think you want to work with it? She completely ghosted me. And that's almost never happened to me in the industry. Usually it's like, no, thanks, not going to go with it. Or we're still looking at it. I'll let you know. Didn't say a word. I sent her like 2 or maybe even 3 different emails. So I got pissed off. I said, forget this lady. I said, I'm making these sandwiches myself. She told me how well they're selling. I make the meat. We're doing these sandwiches. So I have an amazing designer. I said, we need to get a design for this box. I want to make it similar to the sandwich, the one in the UK. I reached out to a sandwich manufacturer. Like, now I can really talk to people. I mean, when I was trying to get a food manufacturer back when I was pregnant and sweatpants, nobody would talk to me. I didn't have one sale. Now I'm like, I was on Shark Tank. Let's have this conversation now, basically. So we're now coming out with not just one, but 3 sandwiches, one for each of our meats. It's going to be 100% vegan with cheese and sauce and kraut and on a pretzel bun and a beautiful box. And it's going to be in the prepared food sections of thousands of grocery stores by the end of this year. And it may even wind up on airlines and universities. And so just the word there on turning an obstacle into an opportunity. So that's another big thing we're working on right now.
That's so funny how that worked out for you. And this just kind of goes back to my whole thought when you're talking about like just being willing and putting yourself out there and talking to people and all this stuff that like, yeah, some of these opportunities came to you, but you allowed that space for that.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I've kind of been that way all along. Like, I mean, a few weeks ago, there was a 10-year-old named Hootie the Foodie who wanted to interview me. And I was like, let's do it. Sure. Maybe there'll be one person that listens to that 10-year-old podcast that gets inspired to do one. Like, I really want to, I'm an open book. I want to share all my Cliff's notes for how I did this thing. I want other people doing this. I want more vegan food in the world. I want more women businesses in the world. So I'm here to serve.
So I know we kind of went through this a few different areas, a few different times, but if you had to leave a little piece of advice for young women entrepreneurs, what would you say?
I would tell them to be bold and lean in and do the stuff. Actually do it. Put out the messy version, get it up, get people's opinions on it, friends and family. Try and find one customer. You get one customer, you can parlay that into thousands of other customers. I remember the first deli who took us on, Arts Delicatessen in Studio City. And the deli owner, everything was looking real good. And then at one point he was like, I don't know if you have the right food safety, this and that. I was like, I need to save this deal. This is my only deal. Cause then I can go into the next deli and be like, they're doing great with it. They love it, So fake it till you make it. Get that one customer. Be bold. I know I'm rambling on a bit, but be scrappy and do the stuff. I'll just say one more thing based on like my Jewish experience. There's a famous word that's used. Many people know it that aren't Jewish. Mazel tov. So mazel is actually an acrostic, which means the M, Z, and L stand for things. So the mem stands for makom, which means place. The Zion stands for Zman, which means time. So most people say, you got to be in the right time at the right place, and then it'll happen. But there's the letter L, which stands for la'asot, and that means to do, meaning, you have to be in the right place at the right time, but you also have to be doing the thing every day. That's my advice to your women.
Oh, my God. I have goosebumps. I love it. God, you're such an inspiration. I love your energy. I love everything that you're bringing up. I'm so excited for you. I'm so grateful you're here today. Did you want to mention anything before we start kind of listing where people can find you?
I don't know. Nothing's like totally jumping out at me. No, this is great. But I'd like to say back to you, takes one to know one. You clearly bring the goods and have the good energy. And I thank you for your graciousness and for having me on and all of that. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. So as we mentioned, your products are available at Whole Foods as well as Quiznos, Veggie Grill, Mendocino Farms. People can also purchase your products online. And to get more updates on further locations, or if you're going to be doing, the whole project, when that project starts,
follow us on social media.
Perfect. So
we're at Unreal Deli on Instagram. That's what we're probably most active with, our Instagram, also Facebook, of course. And Danielle, I'd love to give a discount to your viewers if they want to get a box from our website. 18% off with the code Danielle at unrealdeli.com. I'll send you that link later.
All right. Well, thank you for all of that. Yay. We have your website too, unrealdeli.com. We'll list all of those in the description of the podcast for people to check out.
Beautiful.
Thank you again. This was amazing.
Oh, amazing for me as well. Thank you for the opportunity. You're so lovely. I wish you all the success in the world, teaching women how to be limitless as we are.
Yeah. And thank you, ladies, or anybody else who's listening, and we will catch you next time. Thank you so much for listening. You can find more episodes on the website at www.limitlessladiesandleadership.com. To support the podcast and keep episodes coming, check out Patreon at Limitless Ladies in Leadership. To keep updated with new episodes, give the podcast a follow on Facebook and Instagram at Limitless Ladies in Leadership. Thanks again for tuning in, and I can't wait for our next show.